is the real Dr. Venkman.
How's it going?
And Rob Zilla wanted to do this little shout out, kind of a memoriam or R.I.P. video for Eddie Money. Rob, I'm going to let you take this one.
Yeah, Eddie Money, obviously, if people haven't heard, I'm sure it's going viral now, but he had passed away, I think, around 70 years old. I think at stage 4 or 5 esophageal cancer, I assume from smoking. I haven't really looked up all the information, but we had done a stream just recently and finished that tonight, and we want to just get back on and spend a few minutes talking about Eddie Money because, like us, growing up in the 80s, the best decade ever, as you would find out if listening to the Xtreme movie show and all the other channels we have, you'd find out that Eddie Money was unstoppable. He was the Brian Dennehy of the singing world. He was a guy that you didn't pay much attention to, but had enough talent, and he was just somebody that was on the radio enough where you're like, oh, this is a catchy tune, I'll put it on, listen to it. So we want to just spend a few minutes saying what we remember about Eddie Money, talk a little bit about some of his songs, and just pay tributes to respect to somebody that we just lost today. So, E, what do you remember about Eddie Money?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm one of those, I look at him as if, as the same as I do with, say, an Air Supply or somebody. A lot of people would say, well, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. But then you list the songs, Take Me Home Tonight, Baby Hold On, Fall in Love Again. And you realize, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I know all those. And so it's one of those things where I've got to tell you, my wife is an active Eddie Money fan. So I learned it through osmosis. And it's just entertaining music. Wasn't the biggest fan myself, but for her, I got to say, it's a bit of a loss.
Well, he was the kind of guy that back in the day you'd say, okay, is he rock and roll? Is he pop? It was pretty light tasting in a sense, but it wasn't offensive. It wasn't anything other than just somebody that had a pretty decent singing ability, sound wise to it. He had a voice, and he didn't make too much undigestible stuff like you would hear on the quote unquote radio today. Obviously, I think he got started in the late 70s, early 80s, but by the time 84, 85, 86 rolled around, the guy literally was on fire. I mean, we were talking about Shakin right before we launched tonight. Catchy tune. You don't realize that you're kind of going, okay, I hear all the lyrics. And sometimes with a good song, you don't actively know how good it is, but you find yourself humming along, singing along to it, and you're going, you know what? It's a pretty basic bar band sound, but it's catchy. And that's not always a bad thing when you can have a hook. And I tell you, if anybody went online today or will in the next few days just to see some of his songs and him performing within the past few years at shows, it's tough because a lot of the comments I saw today on YouTube were like, man, I'd wish he'd hang it up already, or God, his voice sucks. And the dude's like 70, let's say. He's been singing 50 plus years. He's got friggin' lung cancer, which maybe people didn't know at the time. They're making these comments. He's out there performing, and the way I look at it is whether they suck or not, need the money or not, who cares? The guy's out there performing. He's doing something people aren't. If you enjoy it, you go. There's a lot of love on the circuit today for 80s bands still playing, and he's one of them. And I think he has his daughter in there who you can say what you want about how good looking you think she may be. Take all that aside, she can sing a little bit, and it's interesting to see the father and daughter up there singing some of his songs where she covers like the Ronnie Spector part and does some others there too. So we may hear more about her in the future with what happened with them. But yeah, he's somebody that I remember going, like Bryan Adams, listen to a lot of stuff, don't really remember it, but even today if a song came on the radio, we'd be like, okay, I'll listen to this. Nothing else is on it. This isn't too bad. So this lets me want to go over to the doctor and say, Doctor, you're the millennial in the group. What do you know about him?
Like I said, you guys are well older than I am. Not too old, but
you're just a child, sir.
You guys were in your teens, when he was height of his music career, 80s, obviously. Mm-hmm. When I first heard about him, I heard the music, but I never really seen him before until I actually saw him on the Drew Carey show back in the 90s.
Oh, I remember that.
That was a big thing, yeah.
Now, I'll be honest, I didn't really watch the Drew Carey show. I'm aware of it. What did you remember about that, Doctor?
Well, he was the heartthrob. That Mimi, who's a character, is obviously she's overweight and she has so much face paint on her, like she looks like a clown on purpose. Anyway. But the thing of the story was she was so infatuated with Eddie Money. Eddie Money was like God to her. So like when she wanted to date him, and the guy's kind of like, ugh. But anyway, I just want to point out the guy he actually didn't die from cancer. He actually died from open heart surgery.
Did
Really?
he? I'm
Yeah.
getting ready to look up some of the stuff now. Is that what it was? Did he go to have surgery?
Yesterday, early today. He had he died today, but he must have had it either yesterday, once from recovering, because he said he had open heart valve surgery on his valves.
Yeah, and I tell you, I've known people personally that have had heart attacks and surgeries, and I knew somebody that had quadruple bypass surgery, and it's brutal. I mean, and if you already have something that you're dealing with, and then you have, whether it was related or not to it, something like that, it's just a big stress on the body. And to be honest, I didn't realize he was 70, so to go through that physically at that age, I mean, that's tough.
I mean, I just want to say I loved his music growing up. I mean, I've heard it for it. No, it's there. You remember the lyrics. You always want to sing along with whenever it's on. Baby, hold on, or I want to go back. I mean, Walk on Water it wasn't as good as the other ones, but it's still there. He had talent. Look at Robert Palmer was old when he was in height of his popularity.
He wasn't that old.
I know, but he wasn't saying no. I'm saying no, he wasn't 70. But I'm saying back in the 80s.
Well, one thing that Rob's mentioned there, and I would like to add on about, wow, I didn't know he was 70. The whole thing is a lot of the classic rock and rollers that we grew up with anyway are. I mean, the Rolling Stones have been pushing on Death's Door forever, and it's just holy Toledo, all of them. Bowie, of course, we lost him already, but Rod Stewart he's up there too. He's in his 80s, so.
And obviously we're the Xtreme Movie Show where we discuss movies. We've been having different channels that cover different themes, sci-fi, fantasy, action, all those current events, Marvel, all that stuff. So we obviously did a tribute recently on Rutger Hauer, but Eddie Money and other musicians that we like, we choose to go ahead and say something about, because growing up in the 80s, we know what it was like. We know what kind of effect that had on us. And the music scene was so different then, as well as the movie scene. And when we do like Top 10 Tuesdays or like the stream we just did tonight, the live commentary Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th, we like to share that. And it's great when the people that join us or listen to it later make comments about it, because someone like Doctor, who's young, to hear his take on something like this is really refreshing, because I go, yeah, I'm not that crazy. I do like listening to Eddie Money. It just wasn't because of the 80s that Eddie was successful. And like I say, if you went back and listened to some of the shows, you'd hear, okay, he has an okay voice. He can carry the tune good enough. He's done it forever. You're believing what he's selling, because he's living the music. You can really feel it. And the thing too is with these older bands that you mentioned, when you were in the 60s and 70s, the only way you got better playing your instruments was going out and making money by doing 200, 300 tours. And Eddie Money and all these older people, one of our favorite bands that some people will chide us on, Styx, especially the current incarnation, they still perform today, and they're in their late 60s, early 70s. Yep. Just born to play and just born to produce. So when certain singers say they're considered really big and popular or have powerhouse vocals and whatnot, sit there and go, I'm exhausted, I have fatigue, I can't do it, the stress is too much, the social media hype. I just go, you got to be effing kidding me, because you get somebody like Eddie Money, $50 if he wanted to, he'd go up and play at a concert at a fair, just because he enjoyed doing it so much. And that's one of the things I appreciate about watching these older people. And it's the same thing with, like, say, Johnny Mathis, one of my favorite singers. He's in his 80s, still sounds great. Doesn't have the voice he did before, but he can still do it. Loverboy's another one. Oh, I think he's like 82 now, maybe. He's up there.
You look at Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar's still singing. He's up in his late 60s.
Powerhouse voice. The guy's been doing it since the 70s at least, that I'm aware of. And I know he does other business ventures and stuff too, but it's just, again, the music scene's so different today. When I heard the news, I was like, that's a shame. And you never know how it's going to go out. But I think for me, Take Me Home Tonight was the really, album or radio friendly one back then. Shakin, I always think of Beavis and Butthead saying, wow, how do you make that sound with his voice? At the beginning. I Think I'm in Love was just like, I think I'm in love, and I'll change the channel because it's filler. Two Tickets to Paradise, that's the song that a few years ago, I don't remember if it was a Super Bowl commercial, but it was on the commercials. One of those commercials that just seemed to always be on, just like the Europe Final Countdown one. And so with 2 Tickets to Paradise, it got stuck in my head, and I'd be walking around work going, "I've got 2 tickets to paradise," really hard, like he would do it as a joke. And I would start pissing people off because it was one of those things. And we used to like jab each other by saying that to piss each other off because it was just so catchy. And when he did the commercial, you're like, that's kind of cute. He's not taking himself too seriously. And I think that like adds to his persona. He's not being a complete ass or making fun of himself stupidly. It just, he had fun with it. And that was his music in a nutshell. He enjoyed doing it. You felt the vibe. I think "Baby Hold On" is his best song, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys
agree.
Yeah, I think that's head and shoulders above everything else he's done. That's a great song. When it comes out, I'm like, I'm gonna listen to this one. What about you guys?
I agree with you. I like that song. It's one of those. It's one of those that just has it's just catchier to me, and it gets me a lot better.
Yeah. What is it? What's the other one? I Think I'm in Love. Like,
yes.
That doesn't sound like Eddie Money. It sounds more like what's his name? Rick Springfield song. When I hear it.
Oh, you're derailing this by mentioning Rick Springfield.
That's a whole other.
Here's a question, and many people probably don't know this. I mean, I personally didn't know it. I looked it up. He actually was a New York police officer for 2 years before moving to California in 1968. He moved over either 1960 or 1970. He moved over to California, and then he played a lot of gigs before finally making it big in the 70s.
Yeah, it's interesting because I grew up in a family where certain members were involved in the music community on the side for a very long time. So on the peripheral, I'd been involved in doing things like that. And he has a somewhat similar background as when it comes to music. And that's one of the things that you always remember. No matter how good or how bad you were with music, you're always looking for that next gig to go play because some actors, older actors even have that. If you're not working, you're not panicky in a way, but you're just going, I don't know when I'm going to get my next paycheck. I want to work. I want to do it. I don't want to just make one album and call it quits. I want to produce. And the thing about Baby Hold On to Me, that if we ever talk music more later, which I'm sure we will on the Xtreme Movie Show, is that the Xtreme Music Show. I like that. Is that the thing about Baby Hold On to Me, whether you think it's schlocky or not. And I think about this when I think of 80s R&B, like Sade and a few other songs. Anita Baker comes to mind. There was in the 80s, as we've mentioned before on our theme shows, you get to a certain point around 84, 85, 86, where things just go nuclear. They hit critical mass and they get 80s-fied, as the word I've been using. But in music, one thing I like, besides the variety in the 80s, and Baby Hold On to Me is a good example of this, is that you can have a love song about romance from a male singing it without it having to be F this, F that, what I'm going to do to you, and all graphic stuff. Now, that's not to say, a song like 17 by Winger doesn't have its merits, because it certainly does, but that's, to each his own. But when I think of somebody like Eddie Money, okay, he's a good guy, but then he has that one song, you're like, oh, that's a signature tune. It's a great song. It kind of transcends all the light, poppy, frothy stuff that you may not be attracted to for it. And then, I've mentioned before on other streams we've talked about, like with Teddy Pendergrass and others, that you can be suggestive without being explicit, without being crude or crass. And that's really kind of the charm to it, that you're literally standing in front of the audience and delivering and performing. And you don't have the 50 gazillion backup singers and all this other crap. And Eddie Money, to this day, like I said, the last few videos I watched earlier about him working with his family, he's doing that. He's just standing up there performing, doing what he loves. And what more can you ask for out of a performer?
I'll say this, though. He actually did He did music for Over the Top movie with Stallone.
Did he?
Yes. So we're gonna have to watch it soon.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I mean, Over the Top. Whether it's a good movie or not, or if Stallone likes it, because definitely was a cash cow for Stallone. But I didn't realize he did.
He's also
interesting.
In Cuffs, and then the movie TV series Hardball.
I don't know about that one. I mean, I don't even think I've heard of it.
Hardball was on for one season, 89 to 90.
Eric's saying in chat there that Venkman is so young he got his 2 tickets to Paradise on Trivago. That's the line of the night right there.
That guy got a DUI.
That's funny.
Well, look, I know we just wanted to come on and spend a few minutes talking a little bit about Eddie Money there. I'm looking to see if there's any comments in chat about it. Any final thoughts there, Doctor, before we wrap it up?
Just want to say that I think I'll be missed, and we're losing a lot of the original people who can actually sing and play music.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be doing a lot more of these streams over the next couple of years, as we grow and focus on stuff there too. I do see, E, before we get to you, that Joe popped in with a comment about, I always thought Baby Hold On had a Motown vibe. I think that's very interesting, because I think what's lost on a lot of musicians today, even though it's pretty interesting that you can do a lot of stuff on your computer with beats and samples and whatnot, is that you're absolutely right. You had a Motown sound that was produced out of just a couple rooms, literally with a few people, but you knew it was produced because it had a particular vibe to it.
Okay.
That's a good comment, and I think it was a different song, and maybe the production part to it was based on it. Without knowing the background of that song, I think that's a really good observation.
Here, I want to correct something. The Drew Carey Show, he was actually been Mimi's first husband early in his career, and they never made their divorce official.
Okay, that's pretty funny.
E, any final thoughts you've got?
Like he said, I think this is going to be something if we add, because we did Rutger Hauer, and we're going to do, the big actors and everything who pass away. If we add classic rockers, we're going to be doing this a lot, because all the good ones, like you said, all the good ones are up there now. And unfortunately, he did bring up the fact that they're the ones that were singing and playing their own music.
Yep.
So like I'm going to hear more from Gail, because she's the bigger fan of this. But
is she aware of the news? Has she heard yet?
Yeah, well, yeah. We talked about it earlier, and she mentioned, you know what, when REO Speedwagon dies. Yeah, she's a bigger REO fan. So I don't know. Dennis DeYoung is Keith
Richards is actually a robot now. You don't know, he's an android. It's not really him.
Keith Richards can't be killed by conventional means.
Well, the joke with them is just, that's been the standard joke for them for the longest time. But
for 30 years now.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't make a YouTube channel to sit here and do rip videos or anything. No. But I mean, so look, let's be honest. You mentioned it earlier, just to reiterate for those that just joined. I know we've got about 8-9 people listening right now. You really weren't an Eddie Money fan. That doesn't mean you hated him or you think he sucked or you go on Twitter and vilify the guy. You just
it's like I said
to you, right?
Like I said, he's somebody who you could say that you're not a fan of, but then when you list the songs, Take Me Home Tonight, Baby Hold On to Me, the thing is, his songs, them and you enjoy them. I would never go, oh wow, I want to go to this Eddie Money concert. But the thing is, when the songs come on the radio, I'm singing along. Why? Because they're catchy as hell. The man wrote and made good music. It's just one of those things. Some artists are like that. I've always, like I said, I always bring up Air Supply or Barry Manilow as people that are like, oh, I don't like that guy. And then you just find yourself, singing along with their songs. Eddie Money to me is one of those people. I think he did make some decent songs. It just wasn't my cup of tea, No,
this is the millennial speaking in me. When I was younger, I used to confuse Baby Hold On was actually an Eric Clapton song. I don't know. It sounds similar to me, like Eric Clapton songs.
If there was somebody that had a really good Eddie Money impression, I would pay money to see them perform as Eddie Money, Crossroads by Cream, or One Big Hit. But I'm trying not to make too light of Eddie Money with his passing. But Look, I had an argument with a friend of mine 30, 40 years ago with music, because we were talking about one-hit wonders, which there were a lot of in the 80s, which I think in a way is a testament where you might be a decent musician, you might be able to sing, but for some reason your music doesn't seem to catch, or you're financially not viable. So, things happen in groups and all that. Music's a tough business, like anything, if you're successful. And the argument was something like this. A friend of mine had asked me, he said, Rob, would you want to be a one-hit wonder? And I went, oh, hell yeah. And I said, why? And I used a song for an example that was like a one hit at the time, and it got popular again. And it was, I just said, I'd rather have that one song that got so super popular that touched everybody in one way or another, where 30 years from now they go, yeah, I don't know who that is, but that's my jam. Or, oh, I remember that was Spring Break. Or, oh yeah, over the summer everybody's talking about, oh, wasn't that from the movie? Where if you can affect that many people, it's like an intensity thing. One time, I think that's better than having, a couple albums nobody really knows about. Or, you're a teacher and I go, well, what have you done? Oh, well, I've made 6 albums. Really? I haven't heard of any of them. Well, no, they did okay. And I made a living off of it. I mean, hey, you never know what's going to happen. There's a lot of things you can't control. And for Eddie Money, I think his career was definitely above average when it comes to all that. And when you look at his talent, like he said, it's catchy music. And if I was a musician, it'd be great to make $1 gazillion. But if nobody liked me, or even if they did or didn't, or whatever I did on the side, if they didn't remember the music when it's all said and done, what have you really got? And that's the one thing about Eddie Money. He catchy music, and definitely a good thing about the 80s with him. I have to say that too. Barry does write the songs, Eric Breen says. Yes, and he would like to finish that for you.
Right. No, it's okay. It's okay. That one's an okay song by Barry.
My last comment will be, as we wrap it up, is that and I said tapes earlier because Doctor doesn't even know what they are.
Wait, I know what tapes are. I know what beta tapes are too and everything.
I know that, but I have to play you as the millennial guy. That's our role on the show, sir.
Gosh, jolly.
Eddie Money would be the guy that you wouldn't go out and buy his music, but if his music were on sale in the cassette bin, or you were getting those buy 12 for 1 cent things back in the day, you'd get his greatest hits, and you'd be like, this is a really good tape, because out of the 7, 8, 9 songs on it, I'm gonna listen to all of them. There's no crap or filler. You'd be like, this is a good pull, as E would say.
I did actually own Eddie Money's. I keep saying that, Eddie Money's greatest hits. For a while, I was buying everybody that I hadn't heard. I wanted to learn their music. I had everybody's greatest hits, Kinks, everybody.
Dude, I got the actual soundtrack or greatest hits.
Well, it helped that I had a crush on the girl that was working at the cassette store. You remember that one by Kirkman?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that worked out. All righty.
Final thoughts there, E?
Like I said before, I think he made some really good music, and he's one of those that even if you think you don't know it, you know it.
Go listen to him. Do like what a lot of people do that claim they're fans, or, oh my God, he's so sad, and they didn't know who the hell he was. But I think that's a celeb thing to do now, is when people are dying. Oh, it's the chic thing to go listen to him. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that, and that's what it's all about. So plenty of stuff to go out there and take a look at. So I think some of you may find something that you like with Eddie Money. Doctor, any final thoughts?
I just gotta say, gee, mister, what's a cassette tape?
Right.
Oh.
And gosh darn you for what you just wrote in the comment section, Rob. Now I got that damn song in my head.
You say it the best, sir.
Looks like we made it. Left each other on the way to another love. Yeah.
You know what, E?
Yep.
That was extreme.
That was extreme. All righty, gang. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation. Rest in peace to Eddie Money. I'm going to say it right this time. Eddie Money. Dr. Venkman, thanks for joining in. Rob Zilla, as always. And everyone, remember, stay extreme. Doodles.